Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph, starting with Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis, halfway down the Amud from the two dots. The Gemara now brings the next part of the Mishnah, which focuses on the destruction of the chametz. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion you have to destroy the chametz specifically by burning the chametz. Says the Gemara, quoting Rabbi Yehuda, Oimer ein bir v'chulei ela eina b'sreifa. Tanya, the Gemara brings a brayso, Rabbi Yehuda ein bir chametz ela sreifa v'hadin noisin, and he wants to prove Rabbi Yehuda that it must be destroyed through the burning of the chametz. Says the brayso, v'hadin noisin uman noisa she'eino b'bal yeroeh ubal yimotze. Ton sreifa chametz sheyeshno bal yeroeh bal yimotze lo kol shekein sheton sreifa. If it's true when it comes to that which we find by noisar is the meat that's left over from a korban. There it states that it must be burnt, and yet there's no iser of keeping that meat that has then been left over for any moment in time as an iser. It's true you have to destroy it by burning it, but if you burn it in a few hours, there's no iser of bal yeroeh bal yimotze that you hold on to it while it's still usher. But when it comes to chametz, there is an iser bal yeroeh bal yimotze, and therefore at every moment in time before you destroy it, one is over these isurim. So if that's the case, so again we have a kal v'chomer. If when it comes to noisar, there's no iser bal yeroeh bal yimotze, and yet you have to destroy it ayidei sreifa, so then when it comes to chametz, which is more chamor, has bal yeroeh and bal yimotze, so certainly you have to then destroy it ayidei sreifa. Amru loy, the Chacham said back to Rabbi Yehuda, kol din sha'ata don techilas lahachmir v'soifa lohakel enodin. Any kal v'chomer that you're going to bring, that although it will be chomor in the beginning, but will lead to a kula, that cannot be brought as a kal v'chomer. And the following is going to be the kula. If lo matze eitzim lesarfa, if you did not find wood to burn the chametz, yeh yoshiv ubotil, then you're going to be in a situation where then that chametz will be then sitting around without destroying it because you don't have eitzim to then burn it. Yet the Torah says you must destroy the chametz from your house. So in everything that you're able to destroy it with. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi points out over here that we learned earlier in the first parak that indeed even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that b'shas, the biur, if you have not found the eitzim, you can still destroy it in any way. So then what is the kal v'chomer doing over here? Says Rashi in Dibra Masechet im lo yimotze eitzim yoshev v'yibotil b'tmiyah. Here the Rabbanan are asking on Rabbi Yehuda's kal v'chomer, if indeed Rabbi Yehuda you are saying that there is going to be a chomer gabe chametz, that you have to burn it. Well, what happens when you do not have eitzim to burn it? You're not going to then destroy it. So now Rashi explains, Va'afal gav de'amrinon be'perek kamal Rabbi Yehuda aval b'shas bi'uroi hashvasosoi b'kol dovar. Even though we learned in the first period that Rabbi Yehuda said that indeed when it comes to the zman of the biur, that means midiaraisa, when it comes to the beginning of the 7th hour after chatzos, then, and you don't have anything else to destroy it with, you can destroy it, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree, in any other way. So, in that case, what's the argument that Rabbanan are making against Rabbi Yehuda? So, Rashi explains, Gabe plugtayu mia kulahi. But in regards to their machlokes, Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, there is a kula that Rabbi has in regards to destroying the chametz. Because, b'misha hu roitze latzeis b'shayaro, we said before in the first parak, if a person needs to then leave and go on a shayara or a svina, and he needs to leave within a month, let's say 2 weeks before Pesach, he has an obligation to mevar his chametz. So now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, in that situation where it's not yet zman of the biur, 2 weeks before, if he does not have eitzim, it will come out that he will not destroy his chametz. And that's the kasha the Rabban have on Rabbi Yehuda. It comes out of Kula. Back to our Gemara. Chazer Rabbi Yehuda v'danu din acher. Rabbi Yehuda accepted what they said, and now brings another form of argument to prove that chametz must be destroyed through sreifa. Here he doesn't bring from a kal v'chomer. He accepts their argument, and he's now going to bring what's called a mametzinu, says Tosfos. That means he finds two places that are comparable as follows. Noisar aser be'achila v'chametz aser be'achila. We find noisar, which is the meat that's left over from the korban. That's aser be'achila. We also find that true to be true by chametz, which is aser be'achila. Ma noisar b'sreifa av chametz b'sreifa. So too, just like it's noisar, which is aser be'achila, must be burnt. So too then, chametz, which is aser be'achila, must be burnt. Amru loy, they say back to him, nevela yochiach. Nevela is also aser b'achila, and yet doesn't need to be burned. Sha'asura b'achila ve'ina tu'una sreifa. Omar lehen, Rabbi Yehuda returns back to the Chum and says, Hefresh, there's a distinction, because noisar aser b'achila u'bahana, v'chametz aser b'achila u'bahana, whereby we can compare the two. Just as noisar is aser b'achila and hana, so too chametz is aser b'achila v'hana. Ma noisar toin sreifa, af chametz toin sreifa. And just as noisar requires to be burnt, so too chametz requires to be burnt. Omruloi, the Chum say back to the Rabbi Yehuda, Shor haniska yochiach, sha'asir b'achila u'behana, ve'eno toin sreifa. We know when it comes to shor haniskal, there it's aser b'achila, and it's also aser b'hana, but it can be buried, it doesn't have to be burnt. So too, therefore, you have no argument to chametz. Omar lehen. So Rabbi Yehuda responds, Hefresh, there's a distinction, because noisar is aser be'achila, ubahana ve'anush kares. It also carries with it the penalty of kares. Chametz aser be'achila v'hana ve'anush kares. And also, comparably, is chametz. It also is aser b'achila, aser b'hana, and also carries it with the punishment of kares. So man noisar b'sreifa, av chametz b'sreifa, and therefore I'm left with the argument to prove that chametz indeed must be burnt. Amru loi, the Chum come back to Rabbi Yehuda and say, no, chelboy shel shor haniskal yochir, that will prove against you, because she'aser b'achila ubahana va'anush kares ve'ein ton sreifa. The chelev, the prohibited fats that are of the shor haniskal, there it's aser b'achila, it's aser b'hana, and does not need to be burnt. And yet, so you cannot use that argument. That'll prove to you that therefore chametz also does not have to be burnt. We're on top of Chof Ches Amud Aleph. Chazer Rabbi Yehuda v'danu din acher. Rabbi Yehuda then came and he made another comparison. Again, a type of memetzino, comparing two different places. Noisar yesh noibik bal toisiru, v'chametz bal toisiru. In addition to what we just said before, that noisar is aser b'achila, and we say also has to then be burnt. We see over here that's also in addition to that, cannot be left over. Noisar is unique, that cannot be left over. So not only is it aser in all the things that we said before, that's aser b'achila and it's aser b'hana and it's onush kares, but it also cannot be left over. So then we'll then bring that comparison to chametz. The chametz also is batas asiru, because chametz not only is aser b'achila and hana and onush kares, but you cannot leave it over because there's an iser bal yeroeh bal yematzei. Ma noisar b'sreifa af chametz b'sreifa, and therefore just as noisar must be burnt, therefore chametz also must be burnt. That's Rabbi Yehuda's argument. Amru loi, the Chum come back to Rabbi Yehuda and they say asham tolui v'chatas ha'oif halcha habo al hasofek lizvarecha yochichu. An asham tolui is that when a person is not sure, he's in sofek, in doubt, whether he's chayiv b'shoigeg, something that's a chiyuv kares, which require a korban chatos. Since he's besofek about it, he brings an asham tolui. That asham tolui will protect him in the meanwhile until he discovers whether he indeed is chayiv chatos. Also, when it comes to chatas ha'oif, a woman, if she gave birth or had a miscarriage, which might be a suffix, there she has to bring also an oif, which is a chatos, in addition to an oilo that she brings. And over here, it says over here that habala safek lidvarecha yochichu, that according to you, when a woman has a doubt whether she gave birth or not, and she is required to bring korbanos, a korban oila she can bring anyways, because that can be an nidava, and she makes itnai. But a korban chatos, the Torah is mechadesh, that she can also bring al safek. And you say over here that it's not burnt. Shehein bebalto siru. Those are things that you cannot leave over. We say that it has to be burnt. But according to you, who hold that it doesn't have to be burnt, it can be buried, then you are going to contradict yourself. That means you're going to then prove yourself otherwise. So the Gemara says, Shosak Rabbi Yehuda was silent. Now the Gemara brings statements, 3 different statements, to show that Rabbi Yehuda, he basically calls himself his own downfall. Omer Rav Yosef, Hainu Damer Inchi, and this is what the people say in the following statement. Kapo dechato nagoro. That means somebody who fashions a bowl. That means a carpenter who fashions a bowl. Begova nisroif chardula. The inside of that bowl where he puts mustard, that will burn his own tongue and cheek. Omar Abaye explains it in another way, expresses it in the following way, that Rabbi Yehuda, he sort of speak, ruined himself. Sadona bisdine Yosef. That means to say that a person who then puts shackles on his legs and sits down, midvil yedei mishtalim. That means that he himself, which he himself created, that itself, with his own handiwork, caused him to then be paid off. So he then ruined himself by creating those shackles, and now he has to sit in those shackles. Rava margira begire miktil. Rava expressed it in a third different way. He says somebody who then fashions the chaitz, the arrows, so he is killed, midvil yodei mishtalim, and therefore he causes himself to be paid back. So these are all statements expressing Rabbi Yehuda, who calls himself to then not succeed in his own argument. The Gemara now quotes the Mishnah. The Mishnah states that the Chachamim argue on Rabbi Yehuda in regards to how chametz is destroyed. And it states in the names of the Chachamim, Af mefarer v'zarei laruach. You don't have to burn it. You may burn it, but you don't have to. You can even scatter it and let it go into the air by crumbling it and letting it scatter in the air. Oy matil liyam, or matil liyam. On that, the Gemara has a question. What is the kavana of the Chachamim? Says the Gemara, Iboilu, heichi kamar. What is the kavana of the latter statement? Mefar v'zar leruach, umefar matil liyam. When it said mefar, you crumble it and then you put it into the wind and let it fly in the wind. Was that also saying in regards to throwing into the sea, that you also have to then crumble it and throw it into the sea? Or dilma mefar v'zarei leruach aval matil liyam bo'inei. Or is it regards to the first statement, you have to mefar, you have to then crumble it and scatter it, let it be thrown into the wind, and the wind will take it away. But when it comes to throwing into the sea, you don't have to then crumble it. You can just throw it as is, the chametz, into the sea. We also have a Mishnah of Avodah ki Gavna. Similarly, in other words, we have the same type of question. Rabbi Yossi oimer shoichek v'zorei laruach oimatil yam. Rabbi Yossi made a statement in regards to avodah zarah. When one finds avodah zarah, he has to destroy the avodah zarah. He states that you have to pulverize it and take those pieces and throw it into the air to allow the wind to blow it away. Or another alternative way is matil liyam, or throw into the yam. What was his kavan when he says matil liyam? Same question. Iboilu heichi kamar shoichek v'zarei liyam l'ruach v'shoichek matil liyam. Did he mean you have to be shoichek not only when you then scatter it and then put it into the wind to let it blow away, but also you have to scatter it and throw it into the yam? O dilma shoichek v'zarei l'ruach ava matil liyam ba'ene. Or when it comes to then scattering it, crumbling and scattering it, and allowing the wind to blow, that's only in regards to then the wind. But in regard to throwing to the yam, you can throw the avodah zarah as is into the yam. Omar Rabbi. Rabbi said, Mistabro avodah zora diliyam hamelach ko azlo loy boy shechika. It's Mistabro, says Rabbi, that in regards to avodah zora, once you're throwing it to the Yam HaMelach, and there you don't have boats that are going into the Yam HaMelach, and therefore there's not a concern that somebody, a Jewish sailor, might come and take the avodah zora. Whereas chametz, which is thrown into all other types of waters, that is mistaber, he says, that you would have to then go ahead and crumble it and then throw it into the naharos. Omar le Rav Yosef responds. In other words, according to Rabbah, it would come out that it depends on where you're throwing it. If you're going to throw the avodah zara into the naharos, then that also you'd have to pulverize it and throw it into the naharos. And if you would then take chametz and put it into the Yam HaMelach, it was a staber according to Rabbah, they can just throw it as is into the Yam HaMelach, the chametz. Omar Rav Yosef responds to Rabbah and he says, Adrabah, Ibcha Mistabra. On the contrary, the opposite seems to be mistaber, seems to be rational. Avodah zara deloy mimisa boy shechika. Avodah zara that does not itself melt, that requires you to pulverize. Chametz demomois loy boy pure. Whereas chametz that does melt, that does not require to then be pulverized, does not need to be crumbled. Says the Gemara, Tani Kavosei de Rabbi, Tani Kavosei de Rav Yosef. We have a brisa like Rabbah, we have a brisa also like Rav Yosef. Tani Kavosei de Rabbi, we have a brisa that's like Rabbi, because Haye Mahalech Bamidbar. A person is traveling in the Midbar and he has chametz, Mifara Vizore Laruach. He can crumble it and scatter about so that the wind will then blow it away. Haye Mahalech Bisvina. If he, however, is traveling with his chametz in the Svina, in the boat, mefara umatiliyam. Then he has to then mefarer and matiliyam. Tanya kavose de Rav Yosef. We have a brisa that seems to support Rav Yosef as well. Hayem mahalech bamidbar. A person is traveling in the midbar, and here he's talking about avodah zara, and he has the avodah zara he needs to get rid of and destroy. Shoichek v'zor laruach. He needs to pulverize it and then let the wind blow it away. If he's mahalech b'svina, then it stays over here, then he has to pulverize it and then throw it into the sea. So that's in regards to avodah zara. Gemara says, Shchika kasha l'Rabbah, pure kasha l'Rav Yosef. Shchika will be kasha on Rabbah, because over here it states in regards to the shchika that you do have to then go ahead and pulverize. So that would be difficult on Rabbah. That means the brisa of Rav Yosef poses a question now on Rabbah and vice versa. Shchika l'Rabbah lo kasha answers the Gemara, that's not going to be a difficulty. Why? Because Holi Yam HaMelach Holi Shar Naharos. Rabbah says, when did you have to pulverize it? He says, that brisa is talking about when you're going to throw into the Yam HaMelach. Sorry, when you throw into the regular Yam. Then you have to pulverize it. But if you're going to throw into the Yam HaMelach, you don't have to pulverize. Pure Rav Yosef lo kasha. In regards to the chametz that you have to mefarer, according to Rav Yosef, also not difficult. Why? It depends on the type of chametz. Rav Yosef says if it's chitim, that means it's wheat itself. That itself is going to be whole. Therefore, that wheat, then you have to then pulverize. You have to mefarer. You have to crumble it and scatter it. Whereas if it's going to be bread, once you throw it into the water, it will anyways melt and get destroyed. So therefore, it depends on the type of chametz that you're using. And therefore, Rav Yosef says it's not a kasha on me. It depends what we're using. Again, if it's some type of chametz that requires, then that will remain what it is when you throw it into the water. Therefore, you have to then mefarer and then throw it into the yam. But if it's something that is going to be something like bread, where anyways, when it hits the water, it will melt, that you don't have to mefarer.